I test dozens of sunscreens every single year, but these are the ones that I always come back to and I'm going to stock up on before summer hits. I consider sunscreen to be the most important over the counter recommendation that I make as a dermatologist. If we haven't met, I'm Dr. Sarah Shu, and I'm a board certified dermatologist practicing in the Seattle area. About a third to a half of my office visits are related to skin cancer diagnosis and treatment. Of course, not all skin cancer can be prevented. I've found skin cancers on people's butts and on their feet, but we can reduce our risk, and wearing sunscreen consistently is a big part of that. Plus, I consider sunscreen to be the number one anti aging product, even more so than retinoids, vitamin C, niacinamide, salmon sperm peptides, or whatever else is trending these days, since UV radiation is responsible for a majority of premature skin aging, so that is a pretty nice bonus too. This is one of my favorite clinical photos from the New England Journal of Medicine, and it shows the differences in aging on the two sides of this career truck driver's face. The left side of his face got a lot more UV exposure through his driver's side window. And you may or may not know this, but the windshield provides pretty good UV protection, but the side windows, like the driver's side window or the passenger side window, they're not really protective against UV exposure unless you get them specially tinted. But in any case, he got much more sun exposure from being closer to the driver's side window on his left side than he received on his right side. And I think that you could see that there's a pretty dramatic difference in the amount of aging that you're seeing on both sides. I've mentioned before that using anti aging skincare products like retinoids, but not being careful about UV exposure is kind of like going on a 1 mile walk and eating a whole cake right afterward. It might make you feel better, but it's still kind of a net negative when it comes to your skin's health. I want a sunscreen that my patients do not mind wearing, ideally, one that they even enjoy wearing. That means that they're going to be more likely to wear them consistently and make a habit of it, kind of like brushing their teeth. So I need to test sunscreens that don't just work for me and my skin concerns, but also sunscreens that work for different skin types and different skin concerns. And I also need to stay up to date with what my patients are seeing on social media. That means I test a lot of sunscreen throughout the year, about 50 in total in 2024, and I've already tried a ton so far in 2025 too. Even though I am going to keep buying and testing new sunscreens, I am always going to keep my core reliable favorites in stock. UVA levels are pretty consistently high throughout the year, even in the fall and winter time. But in the summer, UVA levels are even higher and UVB levels are at their peak too. Sunscreens that make my restock list need to have number one, reliable UVB and UVA protection, meaning a reasonable SPF and PA rating, and no personal issues with unexpected burns when I'm using the product. Number two, no recent scandals or testing showing underprotection. And number three, an excellent look and feel. That brings me to my first pick, ISDIN's Eryfotona Actinica Mineral Sunscreen. Quick disclaimer before I get into the details on this mineral sunscreen. I think that it is way easier and less expensive to find very nice chemical sunscreens compared to very nice mineral sunscreen. For example, the Cynique sunscreen that I covered in a previous video was less than $8 and it looks and feels great. That's why most of the time I use chemical filter sunscreens. That said, there are plenty of my patients that say they want a mineral sunscreen. And also, when I'm dealing with skin sensitivity, usually it's my own fault. It's when I overdo actives like retinoids. I typically stick with mineral sunscreens like this ISDIN one because they tend to be less irritating on my very irritated skin. Even though it's my favorite mineral sunscreen, it is not a perfect sunscreen. It does run a little bit oily and you have to shake really well before application because if you don't, you will look even more oily. A commenter brought up in a previous video that the company was in the European press in the past. There were under protection allegations in 2020 about a couple of ISDIN sunscreens, but I couldn't find any under protection news or allegations about this specific product recently or back in 2020 when that news was from. I've had people recommend other mineral sunscreens to me on this channel and in clinic, and I always appreciate hearing new recommendations. 9 times out of 10, when I look into the ingredients list, there are hidden chemical UV filters that are similar to ones that are regulated chemical UV filters. They just happen to be in the inactive ingredients list. The one that you'll see most commonly is the ingredient butyl salicylate in your so-called mineral sunscreen. That is super similar to the chemical UV filter octisalate. One of my commenters recently recommended the IS Clinical Mineral Sunscreen. That's probably the next one that I'll be giving a shot. FYI, this is the only sunscreen on my restock list that's sold over the counter in the United States. All the other sunscreens that I'll be stocking up on are sold in Europe or Asia or in the US by importers. The chemical filters that are used in them haven't been approved by the US FDA. The last time a chemical UV filter was approved in the US was 1999. Fun fact, that means that when the last chemical sunscreen filter was approved in the US, people were listening to the first single by Britney Spears, Baby One More Time, downloading music on Napster, and watching the original Matrix movie in theaters. Next, I am sharing my pick for intense or direct sun conditions. It's La Roche-Posay's UVMune 400 Invisible Fluid. What do I mean by intense sun conditions? This would be a sunny vacation, a day at the park with limited sun cover, or taking a midday walk on a summer day. In these situations, I want as much comprehensive UVA and UVB protection as I can get. Most sunscreens, even in the US, will provide decent UVA2 and UVB protection. Asian and European sunscreens do a much better job than US sunscreens at providing some UVA1 protection too. But what makes this product line special is that it provides even better long wave UVA1 protection than most European and Asian sunscreens. This specific line of LRP sunscreens contains a UVA filter owned by L'Oreal called Mexeril 400, and that increases protection against the longest wavelengths of UVA radiation. You're going to find this ingredient in other products within La Roche-Posay's UVMune 400 line, like their hydrating cream or their oil control gel cream. I appreciate that they're innovating and creating even better filters than what's out there right now, rather than just remixing what everyone else is using. My super minor dislike is the name UVMune, because no sunscreen, including this one, is going to make you immune to UV or completely block the effects of the sun. And when you're in intense sun, you may still need to seek shade or wear sun protective clothing. This sunscreen is great for people who are highly prone to skin cancer and for fair skinned people. It's also great for people who are concerned about other consequences of sun exposure, like premature aging or skin discoloration. Even though there are many things I like about this sunscreen, especially its excellent protection profile, this is not my everyday sunscreen, but I do bring it out specifically for high UV conditions that I mentioned earlier. So, what is the reason why I don't use this daily? Like many of LRP's products, it has a really strong fragrance. Not that fragrance is necessarily bad, assuming you don't have an allergy to it. It's just kind of polarizing. You're either going to like it or you won't. It's just not my preference. And it is quite strong. Again, totally a personal preference. And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who are going to love it. It also has a slightly greasy texture and it's shinier or oilier than I like for my combination skin, especially when I reapply it, which I generally am doing for these high sun or high UV conditions. I start to look and feel a little bit greasy. I'll get into my next few restocks in a second. If you've liked the video so far, I'd appreciate if you can like the video or subscribe. It helps small channels like mine out a lot. Next are sunscreens that I do like for everyday wear. This would be routine sun conditions. I work in an office setting. I get some sun exposure when I'm driving to clinic or driving back home, or maybe I'll take a walk in the early evening when it's still sunny out, but I'm not spending hours in the midday sun when I'm wearing these sunscreens. I will always have my Abib Heartleaf Calming Drop in rotation, but I've talked about that one a lot, so I will keep it short. This is one of my favorite chemical sunscreens. I am such a sucker for serum type sunscreen. The good ones just absorb so well, and this is one of the good ones. It leaves a really nice silky finish and it feels lightweight. It's more like a lightweight moisturizer than a sunscreen. I'm also a little bit biased toward non-tone up sunscreens. I kind of want my skin tone to just stay the way it is. I don't really want it brighter or darker. I just want to look like myself. Another one that I restocked for summer is Beauty of Joseon's Relief Sun, specifically their newer version, the Aqua Fresh. Both the regular Relief Sun and the newer Aqua Fresh versions are really nice sunscreens. They both have modern UV filters that provide better UVA protection than what's sold in the United States. I use the original one more in the fall and winter. It has a slightly richer consistency, but it's still not overly thick or greasy. But as the weather is getting warmer and warmer, I've been reaching for the Aqua Fresh version more and more. I provided my full review on this sunscreen in an earlier video, but to summarize my thoughts, I love that it's lightweight, fast absorbing, and it's really comfortable for daily wear, even in hot weather. I don't think you need both of these, the Aqua Fresh and this next one that I'm going to mention, but the Numbuzin #1 Clear Filter Sunscreen is another one that I really like for daily wear. Like the Aqua Fresh, this sunscreen is also lightweight and fast absorbing. It's also my favorite for wearing under makeup. Unlike the Aquafresh, it does have a faint green tint and it provides mild color correction for redness or pink tones. Not a ton, but it can reduce a little bit of that pink undertone in your skin. It did give me some eye irritation, but most of the comments I read specifically called out that this sunscreen works for their sensitive eyes. Eye irritation and pilling are just super your mileage may vary characteristics for all sunscreens. For me personally, I have to be really careful about my eye makeup when I'm wearing this sunscreen or else I get a little bit teary eyed, which is kind of awkward. To round out my summer sun protection, I always have something in my purse or pocket for touch ups. These days, I usually have one of these around for me and my family, the Round Lab Birch Juice Moisturizing Sunstick and the Skin 1004 Madagascar Centella Hyalusica Sunstick. Quick note, I never use a sunstick as my primary method of sun protection. It is way too easy to underapply, just like with sun sprays or mists. Even with creams or gels, most people underapply, but with sunsticks, it's hard to see exactly how much is actually getting transferred from the stick onto your skin. For example, if someone were to say you apply 5 swipes to the back of your hand, even that isn't precise enough. How do you describe the specific amount of pressure that you need to apply to deposit enough sunscreen with those 5 swipes? So, anyway, that's why I don't use it as my primary method. But I do like carrying them around for reapplication because they're really portable and I don't have to worry about something getting all over the inside of my purse. Sunsticks are super easy to keep inside my purse or my pocket, so I'm never caught off guard. Like if I want to take a walk and it's sunny out, or I'm sweating off my sunscreen and I need to reapply. Unfortunately, I haven't found a US sunstick that I like. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you know of a good one. The ones that I tried were really hard to spread, and it felt like barely any product was transferring onto my skin at all. But the Korean and Japanese sunsticks I tried have been way better. There are a lot of good sunsticks, but these are two that I always have around. The Round Lab Sunstick is my family's favorite. When I tried it for the first time on the back of my hand, it's the first and only sunstick that made me say, wow. A few of my friends who tried it also had the same response. It's kind of a wow feeling. It's super silky, transfers really easily, probably better than any sunstick that I've tried. When I apply it to my family for touch ups, there's not as much fighting or tugging as I'm used to since it just glides on and I don't need to be really aggressive and rubby. Also, I don't need to worry about getting it into people's eyes like with a spray sunscreen. I get a lot of complaints about that. So, why is this my family's favorite, but not my favorite? Most of my family has dry skin. So, for them, it's moisturizing and they like the finish. But if you have combination skin like mine with an oily T zone, then you might not like the finish as much since I'm always trying to combat looking oily throughout the day. On my skin, it definitely has a bit of an oily sheen to it. It is my personal favorite to use on my body, like for application on my hands, because they are a little bit on the drier side compared to my face. But for my face, I do prefer something that has a little bit more of a dry or matte finish. The Skin 1004 sunscreen is still spreadable, not as glidey as the Round Lab one though, but it looks more matte, which I prefer for my face. I still like the spray that I mentioned in my 2024 sunscreen recap from the French company SVR, but I think that these sticks provide a little more value for your money. The SVR spray is my feel like a princess pick, and it still makes me feel like a rich lady on a tropical vacation every time I use it. That's it for my summer sunscreen restocks. Do you have a most used sunscreen that you're stocking up on before it gets hot? Let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for new ones to try. Thanks for watching.